The single greatest compliment I could pay Mundaun is that it certainly made me feel uncomfortable. The unique pencil drawn art style is what piqued my interest in the first place. I felt this would be a perfect aesthetic for a horror game. It makes everything feel uncanny and otherworldly, and this feeling persists from beginning all the way to the end. I wouldn't necessarily call this game scary, it's more creepy and unnerving. Video games themselves really just aren't that scary. They're too goofy and artificial to make for good horror. They might try to immerse you in the game world, but as you're walking through this dilapidated castle or wherever you may be, out of nowhere you see this silly little cartoon hand icon letting you know you can interact with something, and this completely breaks your immersion, reminding you that you are still playing a game. They may try to shock you visually or with audio cues, and this may be effective the first couple of times, but you very quickly become numb to the audio cues and desensitized to the visceral gore. Or worse yet, they resort to jump scares. Ugh. This is the cheapest cop-out horror tactic ever created. It's the equivalent of your jerk cousin sneaking up from behind while you're having breakfast and just tapping you on the shoulder real quick and yelling, "Boo!" And you're all like, "Ah, oh, what the hell, man?" And he's just looking at you like, "I scared you." No, you didn't. All you did was activate a reflex. Anybody would have reacted like that. That wasn't scary. That was just jarring and unpleasant. It was annoying. And now you're just there, picking up all the breakfast cereal you spilled because of his stupid ass while he just stands there smugly satisfied with himself. And it's dumb. That's the one thing these games get wrong. They lack subtlety. And that is the one thing that Mundaun gets right. The art style and overall aesthetic add to this unique atmosphere that is understated and subtle, yet incredibly unpleasant. Even some of the more over-the-top visual elements come off as genuinely disturbing rather than just kind of gross. And this subtle approach extends to the overall sound design as well. Music will transition from peaceful to ominous and right back again, not so much as a foreshadowing of some impending doom, but rather a reminder that things just are not right with this place. Monster sound effects are not there to warn you that you're about to be attacked, but rather to inform you that they exist, and they are to be avoided at all costs. Overall ambient sounds go from the peaceful chirping of birds or the sound of a church bell to creepy little eldritch laughter of children and weird horror movie sound effects. That's the best I could put it. You know what I'm talking about. Those the creepy sounding things. And they are very effective in keeping you feeling incredibly uncomfortable the whole time you play this game. All these elements work very well together to keep you immersed in the game world and invested in its story. A very competently told story that is well paced and interesting. I'm not going to go into the details of it, I will not spoil it. Shortest version, you are compelled to return to your childhood home in the Swiss Alps by a letter written by the town priest informing you of your grandfather's death. You get there, hijinks ensue. Murder mystery, horror stuff, blah blah, you know. Overall, good story, I liked it, but I'm not going to get into too many details, so let's move on. Now the gameplay is normally the weakest part of these kind of games. Horror games in general are very light on gameplay, but that's okay because these games aren't about the gameplay. This isn't Doom Eternal. To me, these games are the natural evolution of the old point-and-click adventures that I used to play so many years ago. And they're mostly about walking around, solving inventory puzzles, and unraveling the mystery of why you're walking around solving inventory puzzles. And this game does a couple of interesting things. I did like how you use your grandfather's old tobacco pipe to defend yourself against a swarm of attacking bees, or how you infuse your lantern with some incense in order to ward off certain monsters. All in all, it's competent, except for the weapons. The two weapons that are made available to you control horribly and are very unpleasant to use. It's okay. I feel that this is almost a design choice in order to emphasize stealth and avoidance over combat, but it must be said, they perform terribly, and they are the worst part of the controls of the game. But there is one huge complaint I have about this game, something I just can't wrap my head around. And it's not like this is the only game guilty of this. Plenty of other games do this, but it has to be said. Right from the beginning of the game, you get to your hometown, and almost instantly, you're sucked into a magical painting where you're greeted by some creepy old dude that shakes your hand and sets it on fire. And you come to, and your hand is still on fire. And you're looking at this like, oh, this is interesting, I must investigate further. What? No. I'm sorry, but if that happened to me, I'm turning my happy ass right around, getting right on that bus, and I'm going home. I don't care what happened to my grandfather. He could rot in hell for all it matters. I'm done. But this guy's acting like it's a Tuesday and he's in line at Starbucks. At one point in the game, he comes across a severed goat's head, and he just looks at it like, oh, this might be useful. Let me place it in my book bag. Maybe I'll need it later. And indeed, a little later, it starts to talk to him, and he just reacts like, oh, I didn't know you could talk. Of course I can. Don't all goats talk? Oh, look at you. You're so cute. You must be thirsty. Let's get you a sip of water. What? This is one of the worst, most immersion-breaking things I've ever experienced, and one of the most egregious examples of ludonarrative dissonance in any game I have played in a long time. The game has an active fear mechanic in which interacting with monsters will slow you down because you're too scared to be able to even run away from them. Yet somehow he's having chats with severed goats' heads like it's just the normal thing you do? Where does this guy work? What is his profession? Ghost Hunter General? Is he the professor of the occult at some wizard academy? This does not make sense. I cannot reconcile it, and it has to be said. This just isn't how a normal human being would react to these kind of scenarios, and I can't think of a single person that would. Despite this one glaring flaw, I really enjoyed this game. It set an excellent mood and atmosphere, told a well-paced and interesting story, and kept me engaged the whole way through. I feel if you are a fan of the survival horror genre, this is an excellent addition to your collection. I'm not really even particularly fond of these games, and I had a really good time with it. And that says a lot.